Yes, sir. And could you say your name and who you're with?
Tim Wheeler with Baltimore Sun.
I'd ask you to do that for Kaine's benefit.
Ticked off all the progress you've made. Yet the water quality in the bay, according to scientific measurements, the monitoring, not the modeling, shows that there's really been no improvement. If anything, it's gotten worse. How can you know that what you're doing is working? How can you assure us that you're going to reach any goals?
Do you want to take?
Well, I'm glad to, because we're just starting to make the investments that we should have started making a long time ago. You know, the issue about why we have had basically 2 deadlines in this program that have passed without meeting is, I mean, it's pretty simple. We haven't invested the money. And we haven't put the regulations in place in instances where we should have. And we're making up for that. We are now investing money, and we are now putting regulations in place that we know will have an impact. You can tell, I mean, you can measure point source pollution pretty easily. And when you make sizable investments, you know, $795 million in Virginia in these municipal sewage treatment plants, you're going to make a measurable and defined difference. But that money has become available in the last 3 years. And again, I think the goal-setting process to some degree has been a little bit at fault for that. But also the general politics that is always politics surrounding coming up with money for priorities in a time when everybody wants to do everything, but most people don't want to pay for it. And therein lies the rub. I am heartened by the fact that in these jurisdictions there has been a commitment to start putting money in Virginia, which was not an investor either really in point source or non-point source. There is now a bipartisan consensus that we need to. But we have to come up with a mechanism that continues to hold us accountable in the real near term rather than putting something off in the distant future when most people say, sure, I'll agree to that, but I won't feel any pressure to produce. We need to keep the pressure to produce on. If we do, the momentum of the recent years, I think, will make a significant difference.
If you couldn't agree to 2020 as a new ultimate goal or deadline for achieving this?
Well, we might. We might, but I tell you, if we stood up here today and said 2020 is the goal, how many of you would have any confidence that we would be back here in 2020 saying we met the goal? The history of setting the 10-year goals has been bluntly a failure. So we got to change the way we think about the goals. And we spent time analyzing why has this 10-year goal not produced pressure to spend the money to create the result. And it's frankly, if you put the goal far enough off, folks don't wake up to it in a meaningful way till the last few years. So we feel like we need to change the way we're coming at this. And we need to put short-term goals in place in 2-year cycles and to meet, at the beginning or really preceding budget development in our jurisdictions as we talk about those goals so we'll know what they cost, we'll know what we'll have to invest, and then we can keep some pressure on us to actually produce. But my sense is this, the reason that you should feel some confidence sitting here today is that the investments that these jurisdictions have made in recent years, I think have been serious investments. We just need to keep the pressure on so that those investments are not episodic or sporadic, but that they continue. And if they do, then we'll see the improvement that we want. Maryland, I think the stat was Maryland and most of the states in the watershed is going to have to basically double the rate of success with respect to agricultural runoff, and Virginia is going to have to triple our rate of success. That's tough, but then again, we recognize we haven't been doing all that much in the past. So we're now starting to invest at this level where even voluntary programs, to go back to the question that was asked earlier, will voluntary programs work or do they have to be mandatory? Voluntary programs can be really successful if the money's there every year because the farmers want to partner and get the match. But if it's there one year and then not the next year, then voluntary programs won't even work if they're episodically funded. So the recent momentum of investment decisions by these jurisdictions coupled with a new form of goal setting that will keep pressure on is what we think is necessary to drive this thing forward.
And the other thing, at the risk of stating the obvious, had we not, can you imagine how much worse it would have been had we not been taking the actions that we had? That's, again, that's stating the obvious and it's very little consolation. We want to see progress happen. But back on the goals aspect, if one sets a goal of homicide reduction, say, in the city of Baltimore as we did, Baltimore Sun every single day put Chalkman in a print and the daily count of how many homicides had happened. With this Bay goal, what if I had declared a goal of homicide reduction and decided that the target of that is in, 2012. It's not, human beings work against deadlines, but if you set goals without taking actions, it's pretty empty. It's like faith without works. So you've got to not only set the goals, but you have to reduce them to increments within which you can see you're taking the various actions on the things that you wrote about in that great article that you all did, showing that a portion of this, yes, is runoff from agriculture, a portion of this is point source, but a portion of this is stormwater. And if you accelerate the intake of calories on any of those without offsetting it by greater accelerations in the actions and the investments you're making, then you end up not making the progress that you want to make. In fact, maybe even just staying the same. How about one more? I'm sure.
One other thing, Tim, and Tim, just to follow up, and then we're going to come to you. We are going to set an ultimate goal. We're not announcing it's 2020 today. It may well be 2020. But what we're going to do is we're going to set it in accord with that first 2-year milestone, based on the data that's being run on the current sediment, phosphorus and nitrogen models that we'll have. And so, no, there is going to be an ultimate goal. We feel committed to that. But we're going to try to set it in a way where this time it's meaningful, and it is set in such a way that puts pressure on us to meet it.